Hi everybody, Scott Kelby here. I'm with Rick Salmon, Canon Explorer of Light, and Rick was our guest today on The Grid. And I asked Rick to stick around for a few minutes because Rick's going to help me through answering a question that I've been asked so many times that I thought it was time to make a little video for it, right? And so the question everybody asked me is, and it was weird because this happened 6 months ago, but people are asking me every single day when I post something, if they see me holding a Canon camera, they go,
right.
You switched to Canon? I'm like, yeah, it was quite a while ago.
So the question is, why did you switch? We know when you switched, right, 6 months ago.
Right.
So what was the main reason? What are a couple of the top reasons why you made a pretty important switch?
Yeah, there's actually a story behind it. So what's interesting is I started with Canon.
Cool.
My first real digital DSLR was the original Canon Rebel.
Wow.
The silver one. Remember the old silver one? It was
Yeah.
the original, not the T1i.
Yeah.
I mean the original Canon
Pop-up
Rebel.
flash,
that
right.
was the one many years ago. And so I started there, and then I wound up on Nikon. I don't know how I wound up on Nikon. I think my brother had been shooting Nikon, and it kind of got me into it. And I love Nikon. I mean, I have nothing but love for Nikon stuff. And so we were approached a while ago by Canon. They said, hey, we want to work with you guys. We see you're doing all this online training and stuff and all. And we noticed that you never mentioned Canon. And we're like, yeah, well, we all shoot Nikon and stuff. And they're like, look, we want to sponsor some stuff that you guys are doing. But we want you to know up front, you will never have to switch to Canon. I understand.
Right.
You want to shoot what you want to shoot, and that's okay. But if you do a training class and you're talking to only Nikon people, could you go, oh, by the way, Canon makes a 16 to 35 too.
Right.
And I said, sure, but I'm not switching. And they're like, we don't want you to switch. This is not this whole thing is not about you switching. It is about, us at least being involved in your training organization. So we're like, great. So they sponsor my tour, and they sponsor some other things and all, but they were really, really almost hyper, you don't have to switch.
Right.
So we're coming up on football season in August, and by this time I've made friends at Canon. I mean, I have buddies there, and we're talking because we're working. I've known Steve forever. He's the greatest guy.
He's the greatest
anyway,
guy.
So I've known these guys for many years because we're all at the same trade shows and we see them, and I've always had a good relationship with a number of people at Canon. I just didn't shoot their cameras anymore. And so I was getting ready to shoot my first preseason game, and one of the buddies that I met at Canon goes, would you like to try, our 1DX? Now the 1DX was a camera they built for sports.
Right. Super fast.
And when it came out, even though I was shooting a Nikon D4, it's kind of yeah, I'd like to try that, but I didn't have any Canon lenses or anything. Let me send you some for this. Just take it for the game and just shoot it. I'm like, oh, okay, I felt a little weird because I figured I'm going to be very uncomfortable with it, right? I'm going to go shoot an NFL game, and I'm like, I don't know where the buttons do, But they sent me it about a week before the game so I could get used to it. The thing that surprised me was I could set up that 1DX just like my Nikon, where all the buttons were just like my, so that I felt like when I went there, at least I would feel pretty comfortable. And so I didn't know really what to expect. I'd actually shot one NFL game many years ago with, what was it, the 1D3? What was that?
There was
the Mark
so many.
III? Yeah, it was a number of years ago. And I really, really liked it. If Nikon hadn't come out with a D3, I might have been gone. But, so anyway, I get out there and I start shooting with it. And a couple of things surprised me. The autofocus system.
Super fast.
Dude, the autofocus. And you're shooting a moving object. Everything you're shooting is sports. And so it's also... And I knew this one from a long time ago. I would be sitting beside a Canon guy, and I'm shooting at 10 frames a second. Technically, the Nikon's only shooting at 12 frames a second.
Right.
But I swear it sounded like they were shooting at 25. I'd go click, 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 and they're going, and I'm like...
It does sound fast, right?
It sounds incredibly fast. And so I was always a little jealous anyway. So I'm out there, and I'm firing this thing, and it's shooting you can shoot up to 14 frames a second.
Right.
So I really just wow, this is great. But... what really made me actually fall in love with the camera this is going to sound stupid, and some people will hate this, but I got to tell you how I feel. It feels like it was designed by Apple. I don't know. You know how Apple...
The ergonomics of the camera, absolutely.
Apple has a certain way of... look.
Yeah.
Look at the bottom of my computer.
Right.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
Go pick up a PC laptop, and there's a fan, and there's a sticker, and all,
Yeah.
That stuff matters to photographers. How it looks matters. And I was just using it. Let me plug my laptop back in. I'm using it, and I'm starting to go through the menus. The way the menus are designed, the way some of the thoughtfulness into the design, the way that you can customize functions at a level that I didn't even know existed on a camera. But you know what really killed me? I mean, this is one was like, the quick dial on the back of it. This one right here.
This is why I switched to Canon in 1995. This little dial here, because I shoot on aperture priority, right?
So do I.
And if you're shooting on aperture priority, you could adjust the exposure. You could fine tune.
You do exposure compensation.
You could dial in your exposure. I think you could get to the right exposure much faster than if you're shooting in manual. And on Nikons, I think you could change it, but I think you have to do two things.
Right. You have to. Well, no, you can hold one button on the Nikon and do that. But that's not what made me fall in love with the quick dial. Though I do have it set up to do my exposure compensation. Because you can set this thing up. You can set it up to where you hold one button and do this, or you don't hold a button. Right. But this quick dial, and this is one thing as a Nikon user I didn't really realize. So I'm shooting a football game. It's a 24-second clock before the next play, but they don't usually wait till the last second to hike the ball.
Right.
My job is, and because I'm shooting for like a sports wire service, I've got to find the best shot. I just fired off 30 shots.
Right.
I got to find the best shot, and I have to actually lock it and mark it in the camera. So I'm trying on a Nikon going click, 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 and the play's hiked. Here, this little sucker, your images go by like this. Zzz, 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 zzz. You can go like this and find the right shot in 2 seconds. And I was doing this, and I had another Nikon shooter at my first game, and I'm like, have you ever used a Canon? He's like, yeah, I see you're using the Canon, Mr. Kelby, and all. And I go, dude, have you ever seen this? And I flip through the image, and he's like,
whoa, right.
His jaw dropped, my jaw dropped. Between the ergonomics, between how fast you can review your images, between the autofocus system. Now, I will tell you the other thing that I've always loved. So I shoot people, right?
Yep.
I always tell people, I shoot 2 kinds of people. Ones that are moving real fast, catching balls, driving race cars, or, portraits.
With speed lights or studio lights.
I have always, I've said this on the grid, even a long time ago, because no one's ever heard me say anything bad about Canon, because I always liked them. And one of the things that I always thought was, if I was really going to be a people shooter, the way Canon cameras render skin tones, I think is the best of any camera out there. I mean, I think this is just every camera has its signature look.
Yep.
Canon's for rendering skin tones is unbelievable. So anyway, getting back to the sports thing, I shoot the game. I'm nailing shots that I would miss all the time. Just love it. I come back to my office and Dave Moser, who works here, my buddy Dave, he calls me to his office and says, all right, you got to give it to me straight. How was it? It's me. Tell me, do you like it? Do you not like it? Just tell me the whole thing. I know they're our sponsor, but I want to know the truth. And I'm like, I'm not going to give you anything but it. I said, here's the truth. I'm not sending it back. He's like, are you serious? I'm like, I said, Dave, I've never shot anything like this. This is amazing. And I loved my Nikon D4, and it's still a great camera. But for sports, this thing was built for it. The high ISO, if you have to shoot at a high ISO, and dude, I'll be on an NFL field in a stadium, lit, it feels like daylight. And I'll hold up my camera at f2.8, and I'm at 1/250th of a second. You said it on our show earlier today. It has to be 1,000th of a second to freeze action. I'm cranking it up to 4,000, 5,000, 6,400. You just don't see the noise.
That picture I showed in Myanmar, ISO 6400. Not a lot of noise.
Listen to this. We're at Photoshop World. Brad Moore pulls up a picture he took with the 1DX. He borrowed my 1DX, Brad. Pulls up a picture, and he says, what ISO do you think it is? Now, Rick, when someone asks you what ISO is, you know it's high.
Yep.
And I don't see any noise. And I go, 6,400. I'm already picking a high one. He says, I kid you not.
12,000.
20,800.
Brad.
20,800. So anyway, between the focus and stuff, I was just in love. But I was only switching for sports.
Yeah.
I just said, well, I'm going to shoot Canon just for sports, but I'm going to go back to my other stuff. So I made a mistake. I was going to Rome, and I'd already gotten used to using a Canon camera. And they sent me a loaner of a 5D Mark III. So want to try a 5D Mark III?
This camera, right?
This one right here. And I took it with me to Rome. And by the time I came back, I was done. It's just, I think choosing your camera is a very personal decision.
It is, the way it feels, but the end result is the most important thing. Right. But the high ISOs, we were talking before, it's amazing how little noise you get at these very high ISOs. And I don't have the top of the line of the 1DX. This is my top of the line camera. And for me, from the kind of work I don't do the really fast sports like you do. Yeah. This is perfect.
Oh, this is wonderful. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. And by the way, this has the same autofocus system as the 1DX. It's same autofocus you use. I use focus number 2. You probably use focus number 1.
I use focus
case
number 1.
right?
Well, that's the other thing. There's like 37 focus modes. You can sit here and fine tune each one
Right.
for sports, for action, if the subject's going behind grass, all this other stuff here.
And so, and I know that people really wanted me, like on my blog and on Facebook, and people saying, I want a feature by feature comparison. What makes it better? You know what? That's like saying, and musicians out there, you're a musician, you play guitar. Musicians out there will know. That's like saying, what makes a Stratocaster better than a Les Paul? It's just different. And it's really, really hard to go, because I'm not one of those guys that wants to analyze it in the studio. Like, I'm not the kind to go read the report online of the tests and stuff. It's like the lens is good or it's not good. The camera's not, it speaks to me or it doesn't. And honestly, after using it for a little while, that was it. And I haven't used my other gear since. But I think that I always tell people, which guitar should I go? Go to the music store and play them both.
Right.
Same thing here. Now, the only thing I miss from my Nikon, I only miss one thing. I love the shutter on a Nikon. But I'm getting used to the Canon. When I first did it, the shutter was so different. Now, the button is the same.
Yeah.
But the feel of a Nikon shutter is a little different. And at first, it was weirded out. And then by the end of the first game, I was totally comfortable with it. But if I could take the Nikon shutter and put it in here, this would be the most unbelievable camera ever made. But anyway, that's what kind of did it. And I know people think, oh, well, now Canon's sponsoring all your stuff, so you switch to Canon. But let me tell you, I've never seen a company more, you don't have to switch, you don't have to switch.
Right.
Maybe because they knew that I would switch on my own. Maybe they thought, we'll just tell him he never has to switch, and then we'll send him some gear, and he'll love it so much, he'll switch anyway, and it will be heroes.
They use the speed lights, too, for your sports work, right?
Well, no, I don't do any sports with speed lights.
No?
I run remote cameras.
Yeah.
Dude, I run remote cameras. So that's why you see me holding a Pocket Wizard. That's because I'm running remotes. I'll run up to 5 remotes for one game.
Because the speed lights are really cool, too.
I just started using the speed light because it has actual built-in, real wireless, not what you call it, line of sight. Yeah, I
the
can't.
600, the EXRT, and the STE3, amazing.
I know, I have a couple of those now. Anyway, but Rick, thank you for being here. So I have somebody to talk to during this. But I really want to do this. You know why I wanted to do this? Because everybody that all of a sudden reads one of my posts and see me holding a white lens and they go, what? I could go, here's the link. Go watch this video. So thank you very much. Thanks to Rick Salmon. And even though this is not supposed to be about Rick, where can people find out more about you?
RickSalmon.com. www.ricksalmon.com. And on Kelbyone, I have 5 or 6 or 7 classes here.
See, that's how you roll. And Rick, of course, is a Canon Explorer of Light. You've been shooting Canon for a long time.
1995.
I'm the new kid on the block. Anyway, well, thank you guys for listening, giving me this opportunity to tell my story about my switch over to Canon.